So in this video, we're going to be looking at an introduction to scientific notation. So you see scientific notation has the STEM science. This you're going to see in a lot of your biology and chemistry classes because in those classes you're dealing with really, really big numbers or really small numbers. So scientific notation gives you the option to write large numbers and small numbers without all those extra zeros. Now there is a certain form, so scientific notation always looks like a number, times 10 to some power. So this a part must be one digit in front of the decimal. So it has to be a single digit number, like 5.82. There's only one digit in front of the number. Also, the exponent n, if n is positive, it means that the number is very, very big. If n is negative, it means that the number in decimal form is very, very small. So let's look at an example. So this says write 843 million in scientific notation. So I need to move the decimal until there's only one digit in front of the decimal. So if you don't see a decimal, it's at the end. And I need to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 places. So I move the decimal 8 places. Now, because 843 million is a big number, that means my n is going to be positive, and n is the number of times I move the decimal. So 8. And now what goes in front is, well, what's the number after you move the decimal? So that's this part right here, 8.43. So again, if the number starts off big, you move it, that's going to give you a positive exponent. If the number starts off little and you move the decimal, that's going to give you a negative exponent. So here's a decimal. That's a really little number, so I know my n is going to be negative because 0.004186 is a small number. So there's my decimal. And I'm going to move it until there's one digit in front. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I moved my decimal 4 places. But because I moved it 4 places and the number started off small, it's going to be -4. And then what goes in front is, what do I have after I moved the decimal? Well, that was 4.186. So that thing is going to go in front. Again, scientific notation has to have one digit in front of the decimal and then an exponent. The exponent comes from how many places you moved your decimal. The number in front comes from the actual number after you move the decimal. So back in this previous example, notice that number was tiny, but I moved my decimal to the right. I went 1, 2, 3, 4, but in this, so now let's look at going the other way. So here I have it in scientific notation, and I need to write it in decimal form or standard form, as you'll see some. So this -6 tells me that I'm going to have a little number, which means I need to move the decimal to the left. So I take this thing and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then, well, what do I fill in all those blanks? A whole bunch of zeros. So my answer is 0.00002634. Now 6.26 times 10 to the 5, well, 10 to the 5 means this is going to be a big number. So to make this number bigger, I'm going to move to the right. So I take this thing and move right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so I'm going to fill in zeros. So my answer will be 626,000. Now in Hawks, do not put the commas. Just put the number straight through. Don't get in the habit of figuring out when do I move left and when do I move right, because if you're going the opposite direction, you're going to move backwards. Example, I had a tiny number and I moved to the left. So if you try and remember left and right, you're going to get confused. Just remember, if it's a negative exponent, it was a little number. If it's a positive exponent, it's a big number. And make that figure out which way you need to move the decimal to make it big or small based off the exponent. All right, so here's my next example. So I have simplify 9,000 divided by 0.005. So in Hawks, they're going to say change it to scientific notation and then you express your answer in scientific notation. Well, the easiest way is just to use your calculator. So I'm going to type that thing in my calculator. I'll have 9,000 divided by 0.005. And when I type that in my calculator, I get with 5 zeros. So I typed this thing in my calculator and that's what I got out. Now I'm just going to convert that thing into scientific notation. So the decimals at the end, I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I moved 6 places. Now that was a big number, so it's going to be a positive exponent. So my answer will be 1.86 times 10 to the 6. All right, last example looks a little difficult, but again, just use your calculator. Now you need to locate on your calculator the E button. So over here I've written, you're looking for EE, capital E, or times 10 to the button. This EE and this times 10 takes the place of this whole part so that you only need to write the middle thing or the outside things. So if you have issues finding it on your calculator, take a picture of it, email it to me, and I'll send back where your button is. But over there to the right, you can see the 2 common calculators that students tend to have. So the E button takes care of this. So I can type these things in and just leave off that. So in your calculator, you need to do the top. So you'll have 6.5 E negative 6 times 384. And when I type that in, I get out 0.002496, and then in the calculator I'm going to do the bottom. I'll type it in as 7.8 E negative 4 times 3.2 E 5. And when I type that in, I get 2.496 E, which means times 10 to the 10. So now I'm going to take these two and I'm going to divide the top by the bottom, and that's going to give me my answer. So that gives me out 1 E negative 13, which means 1 times 10 to the negative 13. Now if you don't get a number in scientific notation, then you'll just have to convert your answer back to scientific notation.